Move on with the discussion with artist Saodat Ismailova. And actually, I think the transition between those two talks will be forms of visualization of poetry somehow, because your work is very embedded with the poetics. Saodat, please feel free to join the stage. Saodat Ismailova is a filmmaker and artist who grew up in Uzbekistan and has a career between Paris and Tashkent. Her film investigates the complex and multi-layered culture and history of Central Asia, while her work weaves together rituals, dreams, within the tapestry of the everyday. She graduated from Tashkent State's Institute of the Arts and Culture and Le Frénois, a studio of national film in Turcoing. She founded Davra, which is a research collective in Central Asia in 2001. And she had numerous exhibitions, including the participation to the 59th Venice Biennale, presented new work at Documenta 15, and received the Art and Film Prize in Amsterdam. It's our pleasure to now welcome Saodat Ismailova. So, again, thank you very much for being with us today. I know that you speak really good French, but we said we would do it in English, and at some moment we might swap if necessary. We're going to focus this discussion today on one specific film that you did that is especially topical for us throughout its theme, because it's dealing notably with a very interesting history of a legend of a young boy, Korkut, who, as we will see, gets to fly into the air, and we'll be able to talk about all the various connection and conclusion that you take from it. But maybe one of the things that is really important to say is that your films are usually presented in this beautiful format of various screens, and for us, very kindly, you accepted to make a kind of a preview, but that doesn't necessarily represent like the installation aspect of the project. And yeah, maybe to ask a little bit, like to lay ground a bit of the context of your work. Can you tell us a bit, like how in this specific work, like the history of that region was important for you? Like, how does that influence your work in general?
Well, as I come from Uzbekistan, and that's where I grew up, my artistic practice is completely bound to the land in Central Asia, and I think that the genesis of this film, in 2004, I have been making a documentary on overtone or shamanic singing in the south of Kazakhstan. And this tradition, of course, is ancestral, and it's very bound to the tombs of saints, to cemeteries. And in fact, in 2004, I met an old man on a cemetery who told me what you see in the film. So there is actually no change. And I made it in 2017, but the story stayed with me. Not the story itself, but the way it was told to me. Because the way he told me, it was not only about the myth, but he was putting the myth together with the Soviet history, but in a way taking the distance from a myth to the Soviet history in exactly same distance, and creating kind of a myth from a Soviet technological history. And the story is that there is an ancient myth of Korkut. Korkut from Turkic means sapphire. It was a character that was scared of death, and he was escaping death throughout all his life. And he achieves the immortality by levitating. And apparently it happened, it's where his tomb stands, like 40 kilometers away from Baikonur Space Station. And Baikonur Space Station is from where Gagarin left to the space. It was a part of the nuclear project of the Soviet Union, and they decided to build this space station in the steppe in the step for several reasons. First, it was the fact that they needed an open, flat space. And as you get closer to the equator, the gravity apparently, you know, on a physical level allows to take off more easy. And then there was a reason of the railway, how the railway network was spread throughout the Soviet Union. But the way this old man told me, it was like, listen, there was a prediction in this land of a human losing the gravity and finding an eternal life. And the story stayed with me because I thought, wow, how beautiful it is, you know, like this storytelling, because the tradition of storytelling, it's based on a full improvisation, you know, like you can never trace time. It embraces whatever what want to embrace and keep as a memory. And I thought that this is a story that I should visualize one day.
That's very interesting way of talking about it. Maybe now that like we have this small introduction, we can visualize one of the excerpts of the film. Allez-y. Et donc, yeah. Okay, again, thank you for making this except for us. One of the important part, of course, the title is pretty important for this specific work, Two Horizons. How did you choose it? Although, there's of course something very luminous and clear about it. But
Well, I think that it is because of the. For me, it's a film that puts together two stories or two myths, or it's a speculation between two memories, let's say, and trying to put them together around this idea of immortality or the question of the gravity that the land owns. But just to say shortly, the film is a two-screen installation. It's 24 minutes, so this is a very small clip that you have seen, yes.
of course, yeah, again, those two myths, we talked about it in the introduction, but I want to come back onto it because it's such an amazing story. On the one hand, you talk about Kurkut, this legend of Kurkut, this legend of a young man who can fly into the sky with a relationship to shamanism that we will come back to, and Yuri Gagarin, who's the first man to be sent to the space. Pretty much, my question would be how do you discover that these two stories, these two myths, were almost taking. One is not a myth. Gagarin is not a myth. It did occur, as far as I know. How did you discover that there was a connection, geographical connection between these two places?
It was when I was there in the south of Kazakhstan, in Kızılorda region. And as I say, the shamanic tradition is very strong there, and this is a reason you see this musical instrument who also credits to this mythic character of Korkut. He considered to be, in a memory, as a first shaman, but also the first person to create a musical instrument. And a beautiful part of it, which is not explored in a film, but I think potentially is very exciting, is that he achieves immortality through the power of the sound, of the music. And he knows that he can achieve immortality only through the sound. There is no other way, it's not about praying or dreaming or sleeping, but it's the sound, and he has to create a musical instrument. So as I was in this land of this tradition, it's a local community that created this connection with the Baikonur space station, because also the Baikonur space station was built on an ancient cemetery. So I think that there is a kind of sorrow of local population related to that. And the Baikonur means a rich brown. It's the color of a steppe. It's not even a brown, it's a very specific color of a steppe. And it's a story that came naturally from a person I met there. So, and the geography, of course, there is a magic connected to the steppe, which can be sometimes seen as a bit romantic, that it is empty, that it is very flat, but there is definitely a sense of stability, security on a steppe, because it's flat, so you cannot fall down. It provides another sense, a perception of time, I believe, also steppe, because there is a game of a distance. You cannot really calculate the distance because a verticality is not, it's very seldom in the steppe, and so the distances can trick you around. And so I think that by looking at what we perceive as an empty landscape, it's rude to say that, it's not correct, but it provides a lot of space for imagination. And for me, this work, it's more not only retelling the story, but it's an imaginary space, because the boy, in fact, it's a representation of death. The Korkut, the character, is followed by a boy, and this comes from Turkic. When we dream about young men, young boys, it represents illness or death, and this is what it is in the myth of Korkut as well. So that's why I addressed to cast a young boy.
So this is very interesting, because, so as you're saying, it wasn't a deliberate, knowledgeable decision from the USSR administration to put their launching pad there. That happened in an almost uncanny way.
Yeah, I think that it was a coincidence, but when you speak to some storytellers, local storytellers, you know, the storytellers, they put emotion to it, they make it more dramatic and more, you know, like haunting. So the way it was told to me, I was totally, I got haunted by it, you know, it just grasped me because it was given to me as if it would be a prediction of the step, you know, like it had to happen here.
It had to happen here. No, and actually, it's almost like what you're saying is, you know, putting a small tension with what we were saying earlier. Like the steps has a very stable ground with I quote you nothing, but actually being haunted by entities, being haunted by a certain form of energy. No.
Yes, it's absolutely rich, and also I think that when we think about horse riding and presence of the horse in a step. It connects to the why I speak about the horse, because there are animals that sacrifice themselves to levitate, to lose the gravity, you know. So there is this a very strong bound to the animals and a sacrifice of animals for a human or for humanity, you know, because the musical instrument he creates to achieve the immortality is made by the bone of a camel and the horse hair of tail of a horse, and the instrument is still played by in a shape that is it is kept. And well, I made this little visual travel archival because I think it's still a project that I consider that is not finished, and I really love looking back through these images. Like this is a very interesting text done, of course, by Russian explorers at the end of the 19th century, which is speaks about Bakhsh. Bakhsh means a storyteller, healer, shaman, musician, and Khorkut was Bakhsh as well. So it's a people that have a capacity to travel to the parallel world, and the qobuz, the musical instrument, was used still a bit today for to enter the parallel world where they look for the lost souls, for diseases, to cure people. So this is just a small map. I didn't put the points, but the tomb of Khorkut, it's here, and that is Toretam, which is a town next to the Baikonur space station. So it's really close, and it lays
it's like 20 kilometers, you were telling me.
40, yeah.
Which at the scale of a desert, of the steppes,
it's nothing, yes.
Nothing. It's pretty much the same point on that.
Yeah. And there is this amazing and impressive Soviet monument to Khorkut, architectural monument with, there was a physician acoustic who worked, and so this sculpture, it sings because it also makes it again very logical, you know, when you are in a step, the wind, the power of wind. So you take any string and it's gonna produce sound, you know, or you have a tube with a hole, it's gonna produce the sound. So there is a kind of a bound also on a level of, it makes sense why they speak about creation of musical instrument that belongs to that part of the world in the steppe. Yeah, the steppe.
Maybe you want to describe that one.
Well, this is beautiful. When I was making the film, there is, I was using a drone. Today, actually, in one of the talks, there was this conversation about electromagnetic fields. This happens very often. The technology fails in these places, the old cemeteries, and this is something I learned through 20 years of filming, you know. I mean,
wow. So what's a good idea to put a launch pad to put a rocket to the moon then, to the space?
Like we couldn't detach the drone, you know, we really couldn't do anything to detach it. And the guy, the pilot of the drone, he was like, is there something in a car? I was like, what, like a magnet? I was like, no, there is no magnet, you know. So we had to walk around until we found a point where we could launch it. But just to make it sure that this is there was a Bactrian camel, a female who was a camel of a keeper of the cemetery. Well, this is probably a part that I would like to take the further on the project, because somehow as Khorkut was escaping the death, and he would see the death everywhere, and as Baikonur space station was a part of the nuclear project of the Soviet Union, This is like a new landscape and a territory that I'm looking at in Kazakhstan, and this is Semipalatinsk, which was a nuclear test site in the northeast of Kazakhstan. And these are the like atomic lakes, under Earth explosions that would create the craters, and the failure of the nature because of the experimentation, because the steppe became a big land of experimentation during the Soviet period.
Maybe you can talk about that, like those craters, like how they were created and so on. This is important to the impact of the land.
These craters are the atomic explosion that they would do under the earth, and then the earth fails, because of the impact. This is atomic lake, but then, this is very sad because there is these antelopes in the steppe called saigak. They are ancient animals, from the time of mammoths. They are affected by the environment, and so they fall every couple of years, and still the studies don't understand we can understand what, but not so much can be done. So it's about looking for a death in the landscape, which is there, and expanding that way, and also see where the film can develop on. Yeah, so these are the animals that sacrifice themselves for Korkut, for Korkut, or for us to look for the immortality, or, because there is also this idea, which, it's a very complex question, but maybe there is something can be looked at. It's related to the question of the Russian cosmists, and the scientists who worked on the first rocket, Konstantin Tsiolkovsky, who wrote the book Cosmic Philosophy. He writes about this migration of humans to the other planets. And there was an artist in Kazakhstan who wrote, and he painted on this idea of the astral nomadism, that also very exciting, It's about the nomadism, because the people of the steppe, they are nomads. And so he takes it beyond to the nomadism.
I'll just come back to the cosmosm. If my memory is correct, is the idea that because we will reach immortality, there will not be no longer places on Earth, and therefore there shall be a conquest of the universe, so that there's people living there. And so that idea, you connect that to the notion of nomadism. No, you don't. You don't draw the connection.
Yeah, but I think that it's when it goes beyond the idea of nomadism that goes beyond the Earth. I find it interesting, but the idea of colonizing the universe, I find it as
especially now, it's scary.
So yeah.
But it's I come back because actually what you're saying is bringing a very important point in your work. We have these two. Okay, so one story that starts from the 14th century, something like 12th century, Korkut.
There is no time.
No time, but it's been there for
a
mythical figure that has shaped some imaginaries for a long time. Then there is one of the most famous acts of science achievement, which is sending a man into the space. Do you see there some? My question is going to be reductive, but do you see like a clash of vision? Do you think that it's reconciled in your work? How do you put them together? Do you see this as just a resonance, or do you see it as a clash of visions?
No, I don't see it as a clash. I see that there is always a space where we will be always curious or driven by, which is death, like a death, and what is beyond death, or what is beyond life, or you can put it in another formulation. And I think that this question creates this universe, mundus imaginalis, like a universe of imaginary, where we act. And I think that for me it's always fascinating how limitless human mind and a soul is, in this capacity of creating the space of the ideas or of imaginary spaces. And for me it's that I find here that there was a character, a mythical character that wanted to beat gravity, and he was scared of death. And then there is a human that, as a part of a bigger political project, beats the gravity, and then there is a coincidence of these two stories being close to each other.
Because, like, actually, like I mean, we'll be able to talk about that a bit more tomorrow as well, but the question of myth for you is very important. Like, there is something where in your work there is a recurrent recourse to the notion of myth, and actually, so yeah, where does that drive stems from?
I think it comes from my grandmother, because she was a great storyteller. So, you know, when you are fed by stories since you're a child, and I slept with her in the same room for 21 years of my life, you know, so it becomes a part of you, part of your body. But in my work, as in a case of the two horizons, you know, I'm curious to see how I can connect a past to a present and to the future, you know, so then I can enter the space of this mythic universe to be able to work. So not to push it into a space of illusion of irreality or just a tale, you know. So the story for me becomes a space where I'm inspired and I want to work, where I see a connection to now, you know, as in the two horizons, you know, because the Baikonur space station is active, you know, it's there, you travel and you can see how it is happening. So that's how I approach the mythical space.
Thank you, that's beautiful. And so maybe like before we open up to the floor, like in your practice, there is something that is very cinematic, and at the same time, like you work as a video artist, is you know, video art, and I just want to talk about the medium a bit, because you know we didn't expand so much, and there is, I mean, your work is really like a tapestry weaving in together various forms that are either very ancient, very colloquial, and so how. Yeah, you have both been trained as a filmmaker and as a video artist? There's something very cinematic in your work. Do you need to make it? Do you see that there is a specificity to like cinema making? Do you think that that there is specificity to like video art in your practice? Is it a category with which you think?
I think it's related to the form of narration, though this is also questionable, you know. So because in standard, we would say a cinema, it's that goes through the industry, through the, you know, like it has a certain formula that you go through, and then there is the length is regulated. No, like there is a lot of regulations. While in a space where I am now, I work without any regulation. But again, this is not an answer, you know, because it can be merged totally. But I think, you know, for me, it was kind of the other way around. I made a feature film 10 years ago, and then I started making more art films with freedom in the length and in a narrative form. So for me, this is kind of a space of... I would say it's related to the form of a narration, because I'm way more free and way more questionable in how I work with narration, but also how the image editing and the sound affects the audience. So there is that, I think, like an alchemy, you know?
Like an alchemy, a space to play with in that framework. Thank you very much. Thank you, Saodat. So, on peut ouvrir aux questions. Like, we can open to questions if there are any questions in the audience. Je vois Natalia, à qui on peut apporter là.
Thank you for sharing your work. That's a very resonant theme in the post-Soviet space, Baikonur and cosmism. And I can think of a vast body of work that is dedicated to cosmist ideas. And for instance, the work of Anton Vidokl And when I was watching your film, I had an impression, which was probably not a correct one. When you were filming the step from above, I was looking at clouds. So I'm going to ask you a question in the words of Anton Vidocq, his film about cosmism, about Baikonur is called Communist Revolution was caused by the sun. So the question would be, would you say that the Communist Revolution could have been caused by the steppe or the clouds?
I recently made a film about solar deity, where I also used the idea of socialism and kind of around the sun. So I wouldn't say that it is on the steppe. The sun is related to the Zoroastrianism for us, so it's another story. And the proto-socialism, you know, it was present in present-day Iran from the 4th century with Mazdak and then Mukana in Uzbekistan. So I made a work on solar and the presence of sun and the kind of seeds of idea of socialism that question the extraction and hierarchy of power and all that in my other film. But here, I think that it's really from a perspective of a local person who grew up there, you know. And I think it's about reappropriating a Soviet story to our story and creating a myth out of it.
Une autre question? Bon, bah, I think... Vasilis.
Thank you very much. I have a very stupid question, maybe, because you mentioned your grandmother and her being a storyteller and the time that you spent with her. I don't know if she's still around, if she has seen any of your work. What would she say of your work? What would she think, or what does she think possibly of your work?
Well, thank you for this.
It's a speculative question.
Well, in fact, you know, she passed away in 2004, and the last story I told her, it was this. It was when I met that man and I came back from Kazakhstan and I told her, look, I'm going to tell you a story. And she told me, well, now it's her turn to tell the stories.
Wow, wow, amazing.
But it was the last time we were together.
Beautiful, thank you.
Well, thank you so much, Saodat. Maybe we can finish. So there's the writer Erika Mokarzel who starts a beautiful essay about your work, saying the work of Saodat Ismailova is riddled with mystic worlds. I think this was a beautiful exploration, the start of an exploration of these mystic worlds that are riddled through your work. Thank you.